All right, we're back again, and what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about leaf propagation in succulents. And what you see here is this is a Graptopetalum, and what we're going to look at here is we're going to one of the ways that you can propagate this plant is to, I'm just going to snap this off. And you can, if you just grab the leaf here and then just pull it off to the side, it'll pop right off like so. And that's the way I usually like to turn them to the side. Some people pull them straight down, but I think if you pop them off to the side, it works quite well. Anyway, we just pop a bunch of these leaves off. I've actually just laid these leaves in a tray. And you'll see on the keynote presentation, you'll see a slide of this where they just have a bunch of them laying in a tray. And you don't even actually have to have any soil or anything there. I like to use our propagation mix and just kind of lay it on the surface. And what will happen over time is that they'll actually, these were just laying on the surface of this tray, and they'll actually, you'll see, so there's one that we just popped off, and then you'll see that they're actually just growing. And what they'll do is they will root right into the soil. Here's a good picture of one right there, where it actually, the leaf was laying there, and it's growing right down into the soil. There's another one here. So, gives you an idea. So that's a whole new plant. That's just like this, but in a much smaller form. Okay, it's interesting because some of these, if they've been tipped, they will grow right out of the top here. There's a few of them here that you can see they've actually started growing out the top. So this is a really easy way to grow these plants, just from leaves. Like this particular one here, it started to root, and then it'll eventually start to form little leaves on it. And then here's all the reserve energy that's in that leaf itself. So as they start to get larger and grow into the soil, it just uses up all the energy in that leaf there. All the rest of it dries up, and then that plant gets pretty large. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Another way to do this is to, hold on, sorry. Got to get it pure. Another way to do this is to just take cuttings off the plant, and you can actually, some of these I would let callus off a day, and then you can actually just stick them right into the soil. Another way of doing it also is to, I can either put these in a pot just to hold them like this. I can put them in a tray, in a prop mix, or another way that we do this is we actually have this little stand here, and then we'll just leave it like that. We'll move this out into the shade, and here's where we took some other ones where we took cuttings, and this plant has been sitting in the shade like this for months, but it's already started to root out, and then we can just plant that right in the ground. Some other ones here also. It's not one of my favorites, but if you have, you don't have the time and you want to just go ahead and stick it in something like this, it's fine. Another plant that we can't really grow from leaf cuttings, but this is an aeonium. It's a succulent that comes from the Canary Islands. And as you can see, these ones down below are nice and short, and this one is really tall. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down below, and this would last weeks. If you want, you could use these in. I know people that have used these just to stick in. Put a few of these in a pot, stick it on a table. Doesn't need any type of water or anything to it. There's plenty of succulents in this. And this looks really nice in your house. But a way to propagate this is just to set it in one of these trays. Leave it alone for a few weeks. It'll callus off, and then it'll start to form little air roots, and then you could pot it right up in the soil. Another one that I did recently was, this is a kalanchoe. Some people call them teddy bears, fuzzy bears. And here's a piece that I just kind of stuck in here, and it's leafing out all over the place. This is another way that, like this particular one, I took a piece of this off, I cut it, I set it on the surface of the soil, and it's already rooted down into the soil. So these root up very easily. Here's another one that I just took a little piece and just stuck it there, and it just rooted up really nicely. So, and then what you can do is you can pot a bunch of them up in a nice pot like this. This is just a plastic, but you could put this in a very decorative pot. And there you have a really nice plant. These will root very easily just from the root, just from the leaves also. You can just pop the leaves off like this, and then just lay them on the surface of the soil, and they will eventually root, and then you could just pick them up. They're just exactly like those Graptopetulums here. So really not all succulents are going to root from leaves, but there are a lot that will. And so that's a really nice way to root those from leaves. Okay, another thing that we could talk about, this is a Fuchsia fotidida, and this is a variegated form. And the way that we propagate these is from what we would call bulbiles. And these particular plants, they're in the agave family, Agaveaceae family. And although now they call it Asparagaceae, because it looks like an asparagus when it flowers. But this particular plant here, and we can probably see this. Oh yeah, this is great. That looks like a bulb. That looks like a little onion, okay? So when this thing flowers, it flowers on a giant stalk that can be up to 25 feet tall. And these things flower, but the flowers actually turn into these little bulbiles. So if this was the main stalk, this little bulbile would be stuck to it, just like this. And then eventually it would fall off and fall down to the ground, and then it would root right into the ground itself. But what I've done is there's an area in Costa Mesa, and we went by and I saw that they were flowering, and waited a little bit, waited till the bulbiles were mature enough, and then went over to it and actually went up to the stalk, shook the stalk a little bit. Luckily I had my hat on because it just rained down all these little bulbiles. And I must have collected at least 100 of them. We've planted them up. This is one that's probably at least a year old. You put these in the ground, and within 3 years, 4 years, they can be 8 feet by 8 feet. The only problem with these is they don't live a long time. They're probably at least maybe 10 years, 12 years, and then they'll flower. But they produce bulbiles every single time, so you'll have plenty of plants to replace them over time. So this is another way that nature does most of the work for you there. Okay. Another way we would think about propagation would be division, where we divide the plants up. This is Aloe cameronii, and what you would do with this particular one is that you could separate these out. I'm not going to pull this out of the pot, but you could just pull down on some of these small little pups and they'll pop right out. So this is a clumping type of an aloe, so you would take this and then you can just pot it right up. So very easily done. There's a lot of these that are growing on campus, and sometimes when I wanted to propagate these and move them to other areas, and we have so many that I don't really need to grow them from seed, I would just go through and separate some of the pups out and then grow those on, okay? And one way you could do it is you could plant a bunch of these in a pot, let them grow up to a certain size, and then plant this whole thing in the ground, and then it'll make more of a statement than just a single plant. All right. One of the other things that I'd like to talk about also is now that was aloes. This is an agave. This is Agave salminiana ferox, and this is one that I received from a friend. And a lot of times, if you we're going to pull this. Here's a little pup, a little offset that came off this plant. It's an exact clone of this particular plant. I've grown this plant before, but what's really nice about this particular clone is the margins are pretty wavy, and the actual terminal spine on these is kind of wavy also. But if you, sometimes when you're growing agaves and you keep them pot bound for a long time, down at the bottom or off to the sides, they will start to form pups. So I usually, what I would do with this particular one, since it's been in here for a while, I would pot this up. This pup is ready to go. We can just pot this up in a smaller container and it's ready to go, or I could actually put that into the ground. But this here, this would be a little tough to pull off of here, and I might break it. So I'm going to move this into a bigger pot and then let this grow up. These will actually do this, come down, and then grow right up. They come right up towards the surface of the soil. Okay, so this is another way. A lot of times, if you're looking for agaves, Home Depot, Lowe's, Armstrong's, wherever, and you see a really nice clone that you like, and you look at the bottom of the pot and you see some pups coming out or at the base, those would be the ones that I would buy. Okay, because that way you're getting more plants. You're not just buying this plant for $20. You're buying a whole bunch of pups that you can either trade or sell later on. Okay, that does it for that section. All right.